Hey guys, BAM Weather meteorologist Brett Waltz here. Hey, if you've ever heard somebody say, the storms always miss me, or the city or the river causes the storms to break up, or we always get warnings but nothing ever happens, this video is for you. We're educating people on how these warnings work, how severe weather works, how tornadoes work, and key issues that happen and that are ongoing across the weather industry that we're working to solve. We're trying to educate more people about some of these common issues and really go into some detail of things that are maybe a little bit misunderstood by the general public. And specifically, we're talking about the desensitivity of severe weather warnings in the campaign with the series that we're doing right now through the end of this week. And so we're going to be specifically talking about how false alarms, tornado sirens, and how some misunderstandings about flash flooding can cause these issues to be worse, and what we can do to solve them, to make them better, to help you understand how to navigate these situations with more aggression, with more confidence, and being more proactive with them. And so the first thing that I want to address are the false alarms. And again, one of those questions that I pose, why do I get so many warnings, but I never get hit? It's so critical to understand that even in a tornado warning, even if there's a tornado on the ground, the probability of getting hit by a tornado is relatively small. And there's a reason for this. Most tornadoes are only about 50 to 100 yards wide. And so we look at this warning box here at the bottom, you can see really where the tornado would be with this type of a supercell is right here. Very small area. And then you can kind of see where the track might be for this. It really only is going to impact, again, a small percentage of the polygon area. And so why are the polygons so big? Well, storms can evolve. They can shift by several miles in a short period of time. And so we generally are always going to see these polygons be bigger than where the actual tornado track is. The technology just is not there to narrow it down to this precise path. And to be completely honest, it probably never will be. It's why we have these polygons. It's why we give some room for error with the polygons. Another potential reason why you may be getting warnings, but you never get really impacted by them is because you might be using a source that utilizes county-based warnings. Back in 2007, the National Weather Service switched from county-based warnings, where if you're in Johnson County, Indiana, if a tornado warning was touching any part of the county, the whole county would go under the warning. Now they use polygons, which means that only part of a county may be under a warning, part of another county may be under a warning. And if you're utilizing a source, an app that's just sending you an alert notification that says Johnson County is under a tornado warning, it's probably not giving you the full picture. It's probably over-warning you. A lot of counties are pretty big, and a lot of times only a small portion of the county is actually under a tornado warning. And so it's really critical to understand here, guys. Number one, you need to be using a source that sends you location-specific notifications. You need to be aware and understand that if you're getting a warning, it's because you are in actual danger. There's actually life-threatening weather in the area that you should be prepared for. If you're using a source that sends you an alert based off of your county, would highly encourage you checking something different out. We offer that through our Clarity platform, whether you're a personal user or a business, to make it very simple to understand and to never give you unnecessary false alarms. The other thing, again, to understand is that most of the time, even if you're under a tornado warning and there is a tornado, only a small portion of the area will actually be hit. We have to keep that warning polygon big enough to account for potential shifts in the track of the storm. With that being said, technology has improved. Technology has gotten better over time. And so, I do think that there is reason to think that we could maybe shrink that polygon a little bit. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Here's a visual representation of what warnings look like. Here's a supercell thunderstorm. We're using Pennsylvania as a representation here. The red area is the tornado warning. The red dots, you're in the warning. Here's one county here. Northwestern parts of the county, not in the warning, not in danger of the tornado. Southern parts of the county, you are in the warning, you are in danger from the tornado. There can even be parts of the storm. You could be getting some very large hail, damaging winds. You could be getting, heavy rain, but you're not in the tornado warning because you're too far north away from the track of the tornado. These supercell thunderstorms are pretty big, and so you can be impacted by the same storm, but not be in danger of getting hit by a tornado. You might be under a severe thunderstorm warning instead. And so just important to understand and know what to look for when you're looking at radar. Now, about those polygons, it is time to shrink them. We can send out custom alerts through our Clarity platform, and when we do that, we make an effort as much as we can to only warn the areas that are absolutely necessary. Since the change that the National Weather Service made back in 2007, we have not shrunk the polygon a whole lot, but it's time to narrow the focus down a little bit. We have the technology, we have the science, we have the understanding in place that we could narrow the polygon down on these warnings at least a little bit, and it would lead to less false alarms and hopefully less people dealing with the desensitivity issue. And so would highly encourage folks that are, in the field of meteorology, this is something we need to look at as an industry as a whole. It's not just BAM, it's not just the National Weather Service, it's everybody. How can we narrow these warnings down a little bit so less people get unnecessarily alerted to warnings that they don't need? Let's move on to the next thing. The next thing is tornado sirens. And if you followed us at BAM Weather, if you've watched our live streams, this is something that we've talked about for a very long time. Tornado sirens serve a purpose. That purpose is they are meant to be heard if you are outdoors during a tornado. Unfortunately, what has happened over the years, counties and towns and states all over the country set off the sirens for different reasons. There's no common practice for when and why sirens are set off. Each county decides themselves how they are going to do that and when they are going to do it. And that causes confusion. We see it every time there's a severe weather outbreak. We see it every time. People are confused. There's tornado sirens going off. Hey, I hear the sirens. I don't see a tornado warning. What's going on? Or, we're under the tornado warning, but the whole county's sirens are going off. It causes mass confusion. And again, it causes people to be desensitized to warnings. If you're hearing sirens but nothing is going on because the tornado or the tornado warning is an entirely different part of the county as you, it just causes people to stop paying attention to it. What happens then? Well, sirens are going off in an actual serious situation and people ignore it. That can't happen. We have to do better. We have to encourage there to be, number one, encourage decision makers to come up with a standard for setting off tornado sirens. We'll talk more about that here in a moment. But number two, for the public, for all of you watching and listening, sirens should never be relied solely on for action. If you hear them, check your source, whether it's Clarity or something else, check your source. Check to see if you are actually under a tornado warning. If you are, take the appropriate action. You always need to have another source for alerts. Don't just rely on the tornado sirens. They are not going to always be accurate for you. And here's the reason for that. Number one, technically they're called outdoor warning sirens. And a lot of the reason for the terminology there is they're used for a lot of different things outside of just tornadoes. In our opinion, it would probably be better if we just used it for areas under an actual tornado warning. There is technology there, and some areas have gone to this, where it's gone to more of a geolocation type of a deal, where it's actually going by the polygon, and only areas in the polygon are getting the warning. But that's not widespread use as of yet. And so in some cases, areas that are under a tornado warning will get the warning and nobody else, or the siren and nobody else will, which is great. However, in a lot of cases, if part of the county is under a tornado warning, the whole county hears the sirens, even if you're not under the warning. Sometimes if there is a severe thunderstorm warning during a tornado watch, some areas will set off the sirens, even if there's not an actual tornado warning. Sometimes if local law enforcement or storm spotters spot a funnel cloud or think they see a funnel cloud, whether it's been confirmed or not via radar or by a team of meteorologists, they'll set off the sirens. Some areas even will set off the sirens if wind gusts are 70 miles per hour or higher, and there's even a city down in Texas I found where if hail is expected to be larger than 1.5 inches in diameter, the sirens will be set off. And sometimes they're even set off for non-weather emergencies. And so this highlights the picture here that the sirens alone, not a good source for your tornado warnings. If you're outside and you hear them, check again your trusted source and go based off of that and not solely based off what the siren is doing. We truly hope that as we continue to bring awareness to this issue, that we'll get more standardization when it comes to sirens, but for the time being, have a different source in these situations. Last, but perhaps most importantly right now, flash flooding. Flash flooding has gotten a ton of attention in the media over the past several weeks because of the heartbreaking and the catastrophic flooding that has happened down in Texas. And we want to bring awareness to flash flooding and really help people understand how it works. A lot of times we'll get a flash flood warning and you'll look outside and there may be some ponding in your grass or on the street, but there's not much else going on that you can immediately see. Similar to tornadoes. Tornado, only a small portion of the warning area is actually going to be impacted. Flash flooding is similar. In the case of flash flooding, most often you're not going to get a big flood to sweep through the entire warning area, in most cases. Sometimes that can be different. We'll talk about that in a moment. But most often it does not affect the entire warning area, but it does affect flood-prone areas, especially if you're in urban areas where, street flooding is common. Stay off the roads. That's the biggest takeaway here with flash flooding. If you get a flash flood alert, stay off the roads. Stay away from flood-prone areas next to creeks, next to ponds, next to rivers, you name it. Start to understand and learn a little bit about your local geography in areas that commonly flood. And then stay away from those areas. Most times, if you get a flash flood warning, you're probably going to be okay in your house unless you're right next to one of those flood-prone areas. Where that may change are those flash flood emergency situations. Those are when catastrophic flooding and extreme threats to human life and property happen. If you get a flash flood warning that is denoted an emergency, if you click on any warning that you get, you can read a little bit more and it'll tell you whether it's a flash flood emergency. That is where you need to be moving to higher ground, regardless of where you're at. Or if again, you're right in one of those flood-prone areas, you should be evacuating. Again, living right on a river, living right next to a lake that floods, whatever the case may be, a little valley that is very common for flooding. There are certain areas where it's more common. We're here in central Indiana, Bloomington, because of the limestone caves, when they fill up, there's nowhere else for that water to go. It causes major flooding concerns. And so having an understanding of common issues in your area can really, really help you out in these situations. And I do think it's worth keeping in mind that a lot of the flooding-related deaths, they're preventable. 80% of fatalities come from driving or walking in flooded waters. Bottom line, guys, if you see flooding, if you see rain or water covering the roads, a foot can pull your car away, can move your car. And in a lot of situations, there's even more than that. And so just don't drive in it. And if you see a flash flood warning, stay inside. Stay out off the roads. If you're driving, pull over. It's the number 2 cause of weather-related fatalities in the United States. We have to take flash flooding as seriously as tornado warnings. It kills more people every year than tornadoes. It kills more people every year than hurricanes. Okay? It's number 2 only behind heat. And so understanding the differences here, flash flood emergency versus flash flood warning, and acting appropriately can allow us to have confidence in what we're doing. Okay? Especially this year, when you get these heavy rain events, you'll see a lot of flash flood warnings. It doesn't necessarily mean your house is going to be swept away. Just because you get it and you see it over and over doesn't mean that you should ignore it. It just means, it should trigger something. It should trigger an action to stay off the roads, to stay away from flood-prone areas. Now, if you get that flash flood emergency in those very rare situations, that's when a major flood is about to happen or ongoing. You need to not travel. You need to get away from flood-prone areas. You need to evacuate, get to higher ground if necessary. I hope that this makes sense, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of a peace of mind and an understanding of how these warnings work and why we need to take them so seriously, just like tornado warnings. They're very, very similar in terms of the impact area versus the warning area. We hope that you'll stay with us as we continue to talk about these important issues. We'll have more details coming. We'll talk about the concern about the loss of data from the National Weather Service in our next video. That will be starting next week. Stay tuned for that as we continue with this campaign called May the Forecast Be With You, as we educate you and empower you with weather forecast information and knowledge.